Okay, so how you guys tackling part A here? Assume buyers believe there's a 50% probability that a laptop will be of high quality. What would be the price that you're willing to pay, knowing that you don't know whether you're going to get a high or low? That you just got a 50% chance of it.
300.
300. How'd you get that?
Figured that for the quantities, the total quantities you need for high quality and low quality by putting the prices in.
So $300 or 300 units?
For the price?
Yeah, so the question asks for the price. Is that what you calculated or not? Okay, so you got $300.
Yes, and then with the quantities, I found the weighted average, 2/3 of them would be high quality, 1/3 of them would be low quality. And so then we took the difference between high price and low price and multiplied that by 2/3 that were high quality and add that to the base.
Okay. Everybody else get that? What'd you do?
Not much.
What, anybody else have some ideas?
I just did the average prices.
And got 225?
Yeah.
Okay. So how'd you get that? So the first of all, the price is really the value, right? You're talking about the value or the price or the value of 400? So we got the value of the high-priced computer, the consumer values it at 400, right? And the value of the low-priced computer is what, 100?
Yeah.
And then what did you do?
Right.
What's that?
250, I'm sorry.
All right, you changed that to 250. Okay. So yeah, we've got a 50% chance of getting this one. We've got a 50% chance of getting this one. So finding the weighted average would be the most efficient way to find the expected value you would get. So when we write these formulas out, it's important to think about, like, what am I trying to calculate? In this case, if you knew for sure you were getting a high-priced computer, what's the most, a high-quality computer, what's the most you'd be willing to pay? 400, right? Because that's your value. Now, if you get it for 300, then you get consumer surplus, right? You get a deal, and this is the maximum willingness to pay for a low, and so there's still benefit. It's just not as, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, and so my expected value of a computer for which I only know that there's a 50% chance of getting something is I've got a 50% chance of getting a high-value computer, and I have a 50% chance of getting $100. So that's the lottery that I'm playing, if you will, right? And so we get 200, 50% of 400, plus 50% there gives me my 250.
Is it that assuming there's the same number of high value and low value?
That's embodied in the 50% chance.
Okay. So then with where did the demand equations specify equations fall into?
Well, that's what we're going to get back to. But right now we believe that there was a 50-50 shot.
Okay.
That's what for part A. We're just working with that. Buyers believe that there's a 50% probability. Okay. So part B, if the price determined in A is offered in the market for used laptops, how many high-quality laptops will be made available in the market? How many low-quality laptops will be made available? Are the buyers correct in their assumption of 50%? So I think this is where you were maybe starting to go with it, Austin, is to think a little bit more on that. What are you thinking?
I mean, if I was with the sales and I was all the low quality, and like I thought 5% 50, and I can profit.
Okay, so yeah, so we're going to try to get to that. So try to crank out some numbers here, putting it back in there. Feel free to work with each other on it too and talk. shoving that 250 in the end? That's where you're taking this? Yeah, put that price into the management. Because that is, I mean, the rational, which again might be a long shot. We don't even know if this is rational for that matter, but they just said, suppose that buyers have this perception. That means the rational consumer would only be willing to pay $250. So then kind of assume that that's the price that sellers are working with and plug that into those equations. So should we work with this?
It was awesome.
So you need to substitute in the 200 from part A, $250 price into this equation. So the quantity of high quality laptops is going to be that price minus that, and show your work with that.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is a lot easier.
Oh, so and that's the problem we're trying to tackle. You put the 400 in there, but that we don't. That's not what's going on due to the uncertainty. In a more efficient market, that might happen. Yep. Okay, looks like most of you got on the right thing. So for part B then, we've got the quantity of high laptops equal to the price of the high laptops, which is just the 250, because consumers can't distinguish. So let me back up a second, make sure we're all clear about this. Is everybody getting the whole meaning of this chapter? This chapter brings in uncertainty, right? So asymmetric information means what? Yeah, well, it's lopsided. Yeah, the information on both sides of the equation aren't equal. There's not equal information. Asymmetric information. Who's got more information in this problem? The seller. The seller knows if they've got a high quality one or a low quality one. The buyer is the one at the disadvantage. And so in response to that uncertainty, part A says that the value they would place on a computer, not knowing which one they're going to get, is 250. Knowing that that's going to be the price, we went back and solved for the quantity of high and low computers. What was the low equation again? 2 times 250 minus 50. So that gives us the 450. So we'd expect, remember this is a supply curve, right? So we'd expect people out there knowing they're going to get 250, people with crappy computers say, woohoo, I'd love to unload that baby, right? So we've got 450 low-quality computers, 150 high-quality computers, giving us the 600 total being offered to the market, if you will. Okay. So, how does that, are the buyers correct in their 50% assumption? No, because now the probability of going out and randomly buying a computer is according to these odds, which is what? 25%. So you've got now a 150 out of 600 odds, a 150 of high quality out of 600 total. You've got 400 of the good ones, or the bad ones, 450, sorry. 450 of the of the low quality, you've got a 75% chance of getting a low quality. So the odds are not the 50-50. Now, how many of you have honestly heard people say something like this? Well, you know, I got about a 50-50 chance of getting a bad one. Have you heard people say that? You have, haven't you? I probably got a 50-50 chance anyway. Or when they're explaining things with uncertainty, sometimes the first thing is kind of, probably, you know, 50-50 odds or 50-50 chance. I've jumped on so many people over the years. I'm like, oh, really? Are you sure it's 50%? You know, because people kind of naturally think when they're faced with uncertainty, somehow the world is composed of 50-50 odds. You know, unfortunately, there's a lot of people I think that play the lottery a little too often because they think there's not probably 50-50. I think they're smarter than that. That it's not a coin flip that they're going to win the $1 million jackpot, but they think that maybe there's some better odds than what are out there because it's typically far from a fair bet to play the lotto. Derek, did you?
I was gonna say, yeah, it's like
it is, yeah. So it is similar to gambling, and so the good gamblers that you see on the World Series of Poker, for instance, with Texas Hold'em, they know all these odds, right? And it's still chances when you're holding, you know, aces in the hole. That's the best thing you could be holding in Hold'em, but that doesn't mean you're for sure going to win. And a lot of dependent upon whether you're going to win is what's flipped on the river and the rest of the turn cards, right? So those odds change each time new information's revealed, and those guys that you see on the World Series of Poker, for the most part, making it to the final table, they're pretty familiar with those odds of what they're holding versus what those other people. And so you're playing the odds in the optimal way. You're playing the odds in the optimal way, sometimes going on hunches, of course, and all that. That's what makes poker fun, or at least Hold'em fun. When you get down to roulette and blackjack, and things are much more formalized with the odds. You can still play the game, but I lost interest in blackjack a long time ago. I played it when I was 18 to 22 or something, and once you learn how to play blackjack by the book, it's pretty boring because it's like, you get this, you bet this. You get this, you double down. You get this, you split, and you just play it. It's very mechanical. Not too much different to me. There's a little more thought into it. Just stepping up to the machine and go, right? You're just a machine when you're playing blackjack. And I don't know. I just kind of lost interest with doing that. Games where there was other people's behavior at the table that might not be playing the odds is one thing that makes Texas Hold'em a little more interesting when you get into strategy and you're sometimes playing the person as much as you are playing the odds. Okay, so let's see. So what would you expect to happen, part C, over time as information about the true odds of buying a high and low quality laptops evolve, right? So eventually, hopefully, the market participants, they'd start to figure this out. They got burned once, then they told their friends, then, you know, whatever. Over time, the true odds would start to come about. And so what do you think would happen? All right, prices are going to come down, right? We start doing the same formula, except we're going to be applying the true odds. So we've got the high value laptop has just a 25% chance, and the low value laptop has a 75% chance, and you calculate it to be what? 175. And so prices continue to fall, and they go against there being an efficient market, because we'd like to have a set of circumstances where there's more people getting the computer that they hope that they would get, right? So if we can keep the low quality laptop people shopping for low quality laptops, if we eliminate this uncertainty, then the economist is happier because we've created a more efficient market. And you'll see the high people won't be taking the hit for the people with the low quality, and vice versa too, because you're still paying 175 to get the low. All right, any comments or questions there? where could this possibly go to now if we run this through? I'm not going to run it through again, but where does this go? Tag, you mentioned 175. Did you take it to part B prime? So A prime is 175. What's B prime? What do you think happens? Do you think it's going to all of a sudden start correcting itself? Or keep going down? It's going to keep going down, right? So we've got, let's go ahead and do it for fun here. What do we end up getting? See where this particular problem, I don't have this worked out. This is like, we're in the bonus round now for this problem. Well, we got 175. So we got 75, and we've got, is it 300? And then, so that's 375. And so does that get us, where does that get us for odds? 20%. 20%. And then 80%, assuming we did our math right. Oops, 300 over 375.
As long as my calculator's right.
Yeah, well, no, I was doing the 80%, assuming these numbers were right. Then I knew that they had to sum total to 100%. That's what I meant by that. So now the odds are this. That's different than this. We plug now the 20% into here. Where is this game going? What's eventually going to happen to this market? They're all low. Yeah, so now the only people that go to eBay or Craigslist to buy a computer is the low market. And we've totally squashed a high quality marketplace. Now, how could we possibly overcome this asymmetric information problem? Give me some solutions, my young econ majors here. What's that?
Give them information.
Give them information. Okay. Now, can we trust somebody that says, "Oh, I promise it's a high one. My grandma used it. She barely used it at all. She doesn't even understand electronics. So it's barely used. Trust me, this is a high quality computer." If they provide that information, is that going to solve our problem? Why?
People aren't always honest.
Yeah, people aren't always honest. Yeah, so will it solve the problem? Probably not. In the long run, I think we come back to the conclusion that we have to assume everybody's lying, that the market will eventually break down. It might break down slower than what we just did here, right? Because we have a little bit of things. So put a little more teeth into that, though. I'm not saying don't run with that. So people can say that they have a high-quality computer, and then maybe give me something that would give that a little more beef, a little more meat on the bones. Warranty, yeah, right? So warranty is the classic way that we've gotten through what's called the lemons problem. So in this chapter, this is called kind of the lemons problem, that you don't know if you're going to get a lemon or a cherry. In fact, I think we've got another problem we're going to do on that. And so one way that this can be overcome potentially is by the sellers offering a warranty. Who's going to offer a warranty? Are the low quality ones? No, right? So if the high quality people are willing to offer a warranty, they get it back. It's kind of a credible thing, assuming that there's some sort of return policy, money back guarantee, blah, blah, blah. All right, flip it over. Any last questions or comments there? Okay, what do we got here? Anastasia and Catherine own a cafe. Because of their equipment and business, they run the risk of loss due to small kitchen fires. The risk can be mitigated by taking precautions, such as purchasing fire extinguishers or by increasing the training and awareness of the cafe's employees. Assuming that the marginal cost of these precautions can be represented by this cost curve, where A is equal to the actions taken to mitigate the risk of fire. Likewise, the marginal benefit of these precautions is given by this equation. If the cafe has no insurance, what would be the optimal level of precautions for Anastasia and Catherine to take? So chew on that one. So what'd you get for A? 2. Okay, 2 actions, whatever they are. See that? So set those two things equal to each other and solve for A. Marginal cost with marginal benefit, marginal cost of precautions versus marginal benefit of precautions. Good. Good. So we do what those economists always do. We will never do an action unless the marginal benefit of that action is at least as much as the marginal cost of that action. So to find the break-even point, if you will, we take 100 minus 2a equals 80 plus 8a. 10a equals 20, a equals 2. So there's our optimal level of actions to take. Okay, so part B. Suppose the cafe has insurance that reduces the marginal benefit of taking precautions to 90 minus 4a. What happens to the optimal level of precautions? Explain why this is the case. What'd you get A down to?
5/6.
5/6. Anybody pull out a calculator and give me a decimal for that?
0.83.
0.83. Okay, so we solve for this. A equals 0.83 or 5/6. Okay, now, first of all, let's make sure we got this before we jump into the explanation. Insurance reduces the marginal benefit. Is everybody okay with that? The marginal benefit that the insurance company is going to pay for part of the fire, so right? So now what about the marginal cost, though? So the marginal cost stayed the same, but don't we have insurance? Is insurance cost-free? Why isn't insurance there? Do you think it belongs there?
The cost of that's the marginal cost of the precautions being taken.
Okay, good.
And they're looking at your insurance as
Insurance kind of runs on here. Now, the other thing is, does it change, and you're right, to kind of tie it down to the cost of the precautions. That function hasn't really changed. Like if you paid even a fixed cost of $100 per month, right? That cost doesn't vary over the month. So this really does reflect the marginal cost of being extra careful. Don't leave the candle lit in the dining room, you know, whatever. Try to do those precautions. That cost function, it's pretty reasonable for that to stay the same. And so what do we observe when insurance is in place? So what's your explanation? What happens to the optimal level of precautions, and explain why this is the case. So when we heard from Tyler, Michael, Kaylee, what do you guys got to say, one of you? Explain why that's the case here. We've got less precautions. A equals 2, A equals 0.83. Derek, number between 2 and 5. I know. 1, 2, 3. Kaylee! It's Lady Luck here. If you want me to do a little equation to show why it's you every time, I can, but... So we got precautions. It's basically the same, a normal insurance story here, but.
I don't know, I'm thinking personally, I would put it as many precautions in there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, it's the simple case of insurance. Now, those of you who had a few other classes with me, we talk about moral hazard and adverse selection. Which is this? Who remembers that stuff from some different classes? It's a moral hazard, that's right. So post-contract, right? We got pre-contract is adverse selection, post-contract. In other words, we're changing our behavior. After we've got insurance, we're changing our behavior. And the insurance company, by the way, takes this into account. They're pretty smart. They've got actuaries. What's that?
Kind of like that time car in the tree.
Yeah, the car in the tree. We don't want to spoil the punchline for those of you who haven't gotten to those classes. No, we got stuff to do here, so it's not that good of a story. Just because I parked my tree under a dangerous, or parked my car under a dangerous tree.
That is impressive. That sounds like an awesome story.
We'll get there. Those of you who haven't had that class, I will get to that story at a different time. I gotta save some stories. You guys have me in so many classes, I gotta kind of pigeonhole my stories into the right one. All right, so okay, so that's our moral hazard. Again, the actuaries at the insurance company take that into account. All right, so moving right along, let's jump into another problem. 15.3.
Let's do.
Thank you.
I'm not answering a single more question.
You're tapped out for today. I agree. Yes. We're down to Tyler and Michael now for their input. So be prepared, gentlemen. All right. So Pablo, struggling artist. Who wants to rent an apartment from Donald. Pablo loves to draw so much that he often draws on any surface he can find, including the walls. In fact, Pablo would get $300 in utility from being able to draw his artwork on the walls in his apartment. On the other hand, Donald would like Pablo to leave the apartment walls clean and free of any marks. If Pablo draws his art on the walls, it'll cost Donald $500 to have the apartment repainted. Therefore, Donald is considering charging Pablo a damage deposit of $500. Explain why this situation could be considered a principal-agent problem. Who's the principal? Who's the agent? Okay, so one of our other issues here is principal-agent problems. So, if my neighbor just listed his house actually for sale, and I used to have my real estate license, and so one of the classic principal-agent problems faced in real estate is when you hire a real estate agent. So you've got the broker who owns the company that has real estate agents under him or her, and then you've got the home seller that hires the agent to sell the home. In that mix of people, who's the principal and who's the agent when we think about the principal-agent problem? Now, wait, we're down to Michael and Tyler. Hope you guys are paying attention here. Tag number between 16 and 21. 21. 21. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Tyler.
So which one is the principal and which one is the agent?
Yeah, which one's with my real estate agent example. So you've got a seller of a house. They hire a real estate agent, a person that is an employee of a person that runs the company. So Century 21, let's say, or Remax. So somebody owns the Remax agency. Russ McCullough is an agent for Remax, and Austin's trying to sell his house. Who's the principal and the agent in that problem?
This story, in this case?
Nope. In my case that I just did, the hypothetical selling. We got Remax, we got Russ McCullough, the agent, and we've got Austin, the seller of the home. If I'm the real estate agent, I'm the principal. Okay. And Michael, what do you think?
That's the trick question. That's all.
I'm the agent, okay. And so who's the principal?
The house.
The house was not an option. There's the seller of the house. The seller of the house? Okay, and why? Let's think about that. So we've got the seller, and we've got the real estate agent. When we define these principal-agent issues in the context of this chapter with asymmetric information, we've got a conflict of interest potentially here is what we're trying to avoid. So the agent is me. I agree with that. Why is the principal the seller? Or is it? Because it could be the broker too. Remember, we got Remax in here as the other. The Remax owner is the other person that I had. So what is the principal trying to do?
Sell a house.
Sell a house, right? So could you do it yourself?
Yes.
Yes. So, but you hire an agent, why?
Because they know what they're doing.
Hopefully they know what they're doing and they'll be able to sell the property better than you could sell it yourself. So you're going to hire them as your agent in the selling of the home, right? Now, as part of doing that, though, what sort of potential issues could happen? Like, let's just say the agreement was, some of you may or may not know the real estate industry, so just bear with me with this example. Suppose the agreement was, hey, you sell my house, I'm going to give you $2,000 to sell it, you've got 6 months, go, here's a check for $2,000. I'm the seller. Wait, you got to give this to me.
Here's $2,000.
$2,000. What might go on during the 6 months that could cause Austin some problems? I don't get it sold. And how much incentive do I have to put my best foot forward since he cut the, I already got paid, right? It's like, okay, you gave me the $2,000, yeah, I'll put a sign in the yard. Yeah, I'll try, I promise. I'll put a sign in the yard and I'll put an ad in the paper once a month and I'm done, right? That's what your $2,000 got. I have no additional marginal benefit to putting extra effort into the sale of the home. So those of you who are familiar with the selling process, how is the agent typically compensated? A percentage of the sale price, right? The gross sale price. So you're selling your house for let's just use 100,000, and the commission is 5. The commission is 5%. Then you get 5,000. When do you get the 5,000? After it sells, after it closes, right? So the timing of the payments, those are some of the issues that come about with the principal agent problem. Okay, so now we've got this Pablo Picasso guy, and he's trying to rent an apartment from the landlord Donald. Explain why this is a situation could be considered a principal-agent problem. Who's the principal and who is the agent?
Donald's the principal.
Donald's the principal. Why?
He's the one that's paying.
He's the one
He's not the one that's paying.
No, I was going to say, he's not the one that's paying.
He's the one, I don't know.
owns the property.
Yeah, he owns the property, right? So he's trying to sell something, I guess, in a sense, but it's a lease, right? It's an apartment lease. But he's allowing them to use it for a period of time. And how would Donald like Pablo to treat his property when he leases it? Ideally. What's that? Keep it clean, keep it nice, treat it as I would treat it as being an owner, right? So I'd like you to treat it as well as I would treat it. And so that's the principal agent problem is, I'm going to turn this apartment over to you, but I don't want you to trash it because it's my place. So what can I do to put things in place? I might be able to do some things. So draw an extensive form of this principal agent problem. Use backwards induction to solve for the Nash equilibrium. So we're going to go back. That's the game tree form. Extensive form is the game tree form. And start putting together a little game theory looking problem to this with using those numbers. Donald with the $500, the $300 to paint the apartment. Pablo gets $300 utility. Indirect utility. We never did indirect utility, actually. Good start. So, and Donald listed first, Pablo second. It can be done other ways. Okay. Yeah, you can work it that way. Yeah, as long as you follow the right change. I was just telling those guys usually the key that I've got starts the other way, but it really doesn't matter. You can take it that direction. Okay, hold on. So, what's the key? Okay, so these need to be arms of charge damage positive, don't charge damage. So that starts with one dot, middle, damage positive, no damage positive, and then branch up.
Yes.
Looks like you all are working on
It's back.
Something like that? Let's work through it. No damage deposit, draw. Donald's out $500. Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Why?
It costs $500 to paint.
Because it costs $500 to paint. Okay? And he's up 300 of, what's he up $300 of? Utility or happiness. Remember, there was benefit to painting on the walls. Okay? No deposit, no draw. They're both even. 0. Damage deposit of 500. They draw 0.
Are you sure it's 0?
Is it 0?
I don't want to be 0. I think it's 0.
What would that be?
It's 0.
It's $500 for the deposit, then it costs him $500.
Yeah. So he's made whole from it, right? So $500 deposit gets used up for the $500 worth of costs. So he's not out anything. 200. What's going on here?
You got 300 happiness, but it costs him $500.
Yeah. So he paid 500, still lost 200 total. And then deposit, draw, no draw. So that kind of sets the stage for the outcomes. So which one? Back, yeah.
Well, then what's the bottom? First 0 could be 500 first.
Here?
Yeah, 'cause you didn't have to.
He has to give it back, though. He doesn't get that money. It works like a normal apartment deposit. Yeah, that'll be coming back. So that's good. Good question. Everybody, any other questions on the outcomes? Because these are important to understand before you go in. Now it's backwards induction time. So backwards induction means we start with who? Pablo or Donald? Pablo. Pablo is second in the chain here. And Pablo's the one taking the action. So Michael, while you had these flip-flop, it's possible to kind of work through it that way, but the sequential nature of it is I either offer deposit or not, and then Pablo either draws or he doesn't. So it's kind of a sequential game like that. And so which one of these is Pablo going to choose? 300, because 300 is greater than 0. Which one of these is Pablo going to choose? 0, because 0 is better than losing 200. So now, backwards induction, we go to the next step. Which one's realistic for Donald? Which one would he want to choose? It's only the checked ones. We can kind of ignore these. Negative 500 or 0. Of course, 0. So that gets our double check, and so that's our solution. So this is a Nash equilibrium. That's the best response for both. Neither party would like to change their answer taking as given what the other one has done. All right, that's it for today, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.